I'm Will,
And I'm Steven.
and this
This
is the
is the
Post P
Post P
Chronicles.
Chronicles.
Hey, what up, say? Yeah.
So, Steven, who do we have with us today?
I'm super excited to hear this story because he was recommended by our previous guest, Sean. And if you heard that podcast, that was just up and down, wild and crazy. And, when he recommends someone and puts his name on it, I trust him. So, welcome our guest today, Joshua Kershaw. What's up, Josh?
Hey,
What's
how's it
going
going?
on?
So,
Man, welcome
Josh,
on the Post P.
welcome to
Yes, sir,
Post P
man.
Chronicles. Tell us your story. Where born and raised? Give us the background.
Okay, I was born in Washington, but I was raised in Texas, in a small town, Nacona, Texas, all the way up close to the Oklahoma border.
Mm.
That's where I went to high school. I went to elementary schools all over and all around Dallas, Fort Worth. For sure, we'll end up getting into all that stuff. But yeah, I lived with my mom, lived with my dad, then lived with my mom, then lived back with my dad, then went on my own, whatnot. But I mean, for the most part, like I'm Texas raised, Texas born, right there. Hook 'em
Okay,
horns,
Texas born. All my
Represent.
family's from
hook 'em
Texas.
horns, hook 'em
My
horns.
my dad's
Big Longhorn
from
fan right here
Dallas.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's it like growing up as a kid in Texas?
Well, it all depends on Texas. So it all depends on where you kind of are. I've only been North Texas, so like from Dallas Fort Worth all the way up to like the Oklahoma border. A lot of my family, like my uncle, was a farmer, So I said up in Wichita Falls. So for the most part, I spent a lot of my like the older part of my childhood there. My dad, we'd always go there every single weekend to Wichita Falls and spend all our weekends out on my uncle working on the farm. He was a mechanic out there, and we did everything from hauling hay to plowing fields and working on whatever need to be worked on, wrenching on stuff. It's kind of like you're just good old boy type growing up, every now and then, go hunting. My brother was more into hunting, but yeah, I was just kind of like wild, lot going on, but
That's a different Texas than I grew up in. I stayed in Texas for a little bit of time. I went to Arlington High School. Excuse me,
Okay.
Lamar High School in Arlington.
Okay.
My dad, he's from Dallas, Fort Worth, but
Yeah.
it was more like the city, so I didn't get to
Yeah.
experience the
Yeah.
hunting and everything
Oh,
that
yeah.
you experienced. But
Yeah.
it sounds exciting for a kid, right? Always outside, not playing the video games. You had to live that exciting life. And was it
Country boy.
fun? Would you describe that as a fun childhood?
Well, you know what? A lot of stuff kind of sticks with you, like I still to this day I don't really watch TV too much. I don't watch a lot of TV, But uh let's see. Like my mom lived all over like Arlington, Fort Worth, and whatnot. So for the most part, like anytime I wanted to get to a city or just get out, I would probably like go visit my mom for like a weekend or something like that. And I pretty much get to just go wherever I want. But even then, there wasn't too much. Six Flags, whatever, go to the mall. But like even then, it was just kind of like I don't know. Like so I, my parents didn't really get along. My mom was married. My mom got married off and on quite a bit, and this and that. My dad was always gone, so it was just kind of like I just wanted some place to kind of go fit in. And just like everywhere I went, I just didn't feel like it was my place. Like I loved where I was at, but it was like always something was just missing. I don't know. It was like I was always just missing.
So, real quick, to backtrack
Yeah.
just a second. What age did your parents divorce, or were they never together when you were growing up? You said back and forth, visiting
Yeah.
your mom, your
Yeah,
dad
so-
was on the farm with your grandpa.
They married, and then probably by my the third brother. I'm the oldest of three boys. So you got me and then one, and we're each like 1 year, a little over a year apart. But before I could even comprehend, they had split. Like, I never remember them being together. I remember living with my dad. My dad was a welder, and I don't know anybody that knows about like welding, back in like the late 80s, early 90s, it wasn't the best paying job, and he was just kind of moving all over the place. We lived in Montana. Hell, we lived in Bakersfield for a while. I went to elementary school in Bakersfield, you know. Uh, I, we moved to Texas. We moved to like Montana. We lived all over the place, and then it was just, and then all I remember is I lived with him for a minute and then boom, I just remember I was living with my mom. So he just couldn't do it. So my mom got all three of us. And then, yeah, I lived with her for a minute. And then I had some abusive households and got burnt out. Just wanted to kind of go back to my dad. I thought that'd be better, you know. And at that time, he lived in Bakersfield.
When you said abusive households, was that because of who your mother would be dating at the time or married to?
Yeah. She didn't have the best choice in men kind of growing up. You know, I mean, she was kind of like trying to figure herself out too. She at the time, for a while, she was a waitress. I remember like my mom, she always, one thing I will say, she did like work hard, single mom for a while. And then it was just like trying, like she had a couple jobs. I remember one time she was a waitress for like Denny's, and she was a waitress at the Holiday Inn, and, you know, and stuff like that. And then she'd meet some guy, you know, and try to do whatever, make it work. Eventually, though, she ended up going to college, and she got a nursing. She got a degree in nursing, and she became a trauma nurse and worked in
Oh,
Dallas.
that's amazing.
Yeah, she worked in Dallas, and then and things started kind of getting a little bit better for her, you know. But as far as for us, it wasn't so much. But
How old were you when she ended up going to school and becoming a nurse?
if I were to guess, I want to say like maybe 12, 13. Yeah,
So did you
12.
find some stability at that time when she became a nurse? Did your life vastly improve from moving from here to there? You know, abusive relationships, you said, a lot of things going on in your early years. How did it look like when she became a nurse?
Well, there, you know what, there was, you know, when you think about, there, I mean, living wise, like stability wise, like our living experiences kind of like did go up, like you know, we had a better place, you know, whatnot. My mom liked to party when we were young. She still, you know, every now and then when she had a chance, she'd go out with whoever, you know, and she'd drink, you know, and whatnot. But most of the time, it was just one of those like she just didn't have the best choices in men,
Right.
for lack of better words. You know, she's still like, I mean, even though she was kind of progressing, you know, her relationship history wasn't for a long time. You know,
Let me ask you something, because you said it was three of you. You meant
Mhm.
all of you and your siblings, right?
Yes.
And I can say for me, because I have two sisters that we had the same mom, same dad, and you know our household wasn't always the best household at the time, but we kind of like banded together. We dealt with this together. We kind of like created our own little family. Was it like that with your siblings?
Man, I wish I could say that. It was she had this one husband she was with for a while, and this was she was going to school, and this is what made me end up living with my dad, because for a while it was me and my brothers, and we all lived with my mom, and then she lived with another guy, and he had a kid, so it was 4 kids in a small house. We all shared one room, bunch of bunk beds in one room, you know, and it was just kind of like, I mean, just kids are gonna be kids, or all boys, so
Yeah.
you basically got 5 dudes in a house and a woman. So it's going to be kind of chaotic. So that's kind of a given, but you're a little kid. You're not paying attention. You don't care. You're kind of like, every kid's kind of selfish that way.
Right.
But yeah, she was with one guy, and he wasn't the best. He was pretty abusive. He used to wake us up at like early in the morning. Yeah. So no, that was just, so we would get in trouble kind of, you know, that was his thing. He was like, you want to be punished now, or you want to be punished later, type thing, you know? And,
So when you say he woke you up in the morning, like specifically what happened? He would just wake you up at what, 2 o'clock in the morning? Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah, he would come get you right out of bed. It was this dude. He's like, hey, he'd wake you up, and then he'd be like, come here, and he'd take us in the kitchen, and he'd go to town, you know, get to smashing on like me with a belt buckle, you know, whatever's in the kitchen type stuff. You know, he would use fit. Yeah, he was aggressive. He was definitely very authoritarian. You
And
know,
that made you want to go back to your dad's.
so yeah, eventually, you know, I'm like, you know, little kid just like, I want my dad. Like, this ain't my dad, and this dude's tearing off of my ass, you know. So I'm like, yeah, I told my mom I wanted to be with my dad, and I had ADHD and was just wild, and just was kind of like all over the place, real energetic and stuff. So I guess my mom kind of felt like she couldn't do it. She really couldn't deal with it. So she consented to me going to my dad and asked my dad if he was willing to take me. And then I told my dad what was going on, and he was like, all right. But he, so I ended up moving with him in Bakersfield, and I started going to I finished off elementary school there because we lived there a few years. So I moved there, and then it was pretty much still just as bad. He was pretty angry himself.
Let me ask you this, Joshua. You said a couple minutes ago, you said something along the lines of you never really felt like you were at home, or you never really felt like,
yeah,
peace. Now, do you think that's because your family was always broken and you're always going back and forth? And then my it's a two-part question. The other part is, how is this affecting you at school as a child?
Okay, so we all know. Okay, so in societies you have your nuclear family, you have your macro environments and stuff like So I didn't have. My mom was kind of always gone. She would always like date or do whatever. My dad was just period gone. My dad, when I moved with him, he's gone 3 o'clock in the morning. He's not getting home till 8 o'clock at night. Brothers are brothers. Like I said, we somewhat didn't get along for the most part. And then, so it's kind of like I'd want to fulfill that, when you don't have that nurturing environment, when you don't necessarily you can't go home and be like, hey, this is what happened. This kind of sucks, And even my dad, he was just kind of like one of them good old, like John Wayne type, like, you suck it up, you go, don't do this. I mean, it was just like, whatever. I don't want to hear about shit. You do what you got to do. And then that's it. Life sucks. You're always just going to work. I mean, and that was the thing. And eventually it got worse, and to the point where he was just like, I can't stand you in my house. I just want you out. So I would leave, go. So I would try to fulfill what I was missing at home with like outer groups, with other friend groups, So it's like when you get the camaraderie or the brotherhood, that you're not going to get at home, you try to go to other groups. You try to basically outsource. And that's what school is for. And so you go to school and you're like, you make friend with someone, and this guy's like, hey, man, and he kind of gives you what you're not getting at home, from wherever. So you try to fulfill that need, that void with what you're getting out there. And for me, it ended up being negative sources, via negative friend groups, negative environment, and I mean, I ended up getting in a lot of trouble because, a lot of people mistake like respect for fear. For the most part. So a lot of times, you get with a bunch of friends, and one thing I would do was I was real needy as a kid growing up. Like I didn't get a lot of like the love and a lot of care type stuff that you get from home and whatnot, Right. So I would latch on. Like I said, I lived with my dad, my brothers lived with my mom. We didn't really get along, even then sometimes like they would kind of use that. And that was a big rift between my brothers because they didn't like being with my dad either because my dad was real rough. So times when they didn't want to visit, they would use me as an excuse or something. They'd be like, no, because this and that. And then he kind of took that out on me. It was like, now I can't even see my own kids because of you. Or something like that, and it was just like, so I would just leave and be gone. So like, if I became real good friends with someone and we became real close, I would be like, one of those like, well, if they got a problem with you, they got a problem with me. And then I would go above and beyond. So it's like, now if they got a problem with you, like fuck fighting them, I want to stab them. Or if they got a thing, I want to shoot them. So I would just like, I would kind of like, I would overcompensate. And then when you do that, you think people like you, but really what it is people, they get kind of scared of you because you're over the top and you're like, this dude's kind of a lot. So, he's cool to be around. And then what ends up happening a lot of times is what looking back, you end up seeing that a lot of people can manipulate that. Like now I don't have the courage to go do this, but I know someone who does. And I could it's kind of like a free rider program, whereas, we're in this group, I don't have to do it. This dude does it all himself. It's like, man, I was there, but I didn't, and then this guy, then it's kind of like the whole bond thing where it's like, this is my boy, so I can't say nothing. If whatever happens, I just got to kind of do whatever. So, and then that's what and I ended up, like I said, doing like a lot of bad things with a lot of people who didn't deserve it. I attacked a lot of people. I've robbed people, and then eventually, robbed a bank. I ended up that's what left me. I left Texas, they came to California, moved out here because I had a grandma out here.
I just wanted to I just wanted to say, because I can hear like it's difficult for you to relive this part of your life, right? The pain that you cause people is difficult to speak on that. And I just want to say, man, I feel you. You know, Steven did a lot of stuff in his childhood. You know, I spent 16 years in prison, you know, due to gang ties and, you know, warped belief systems. So I completely understand everything you're saying. And one thing that I don't know if it may work for you, but one thing that's worked for me is talking about it has been therapy, right? So I find strength in it, not because it doesn't bother me, but in a way it doesn't because I can't change it, but because my story can help others.
Yeah.
Right? Like this, the way you see me now, it took a lot to get to this point where I'm smiling all the time.
Yeah.
And me sharing my story with you is going to make you appreciate it that much more. Right. So I just wanted to, man, you're not alone in this.
I also
You're
like,
definitely not alone.
I like when I hear Joshua talking, he's taking ownership. He's not pushing blame on people. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? He's like, I did this, I became this person. People can manipulate me because I was this way, you know, like he's not like, oh, my parents were all trash, my friends were all trash. He's acknowledging the problems that he had and what made him the person he was. So I like that. It's interesting what I was just noticing, right? Like every parent's biggest nightmare is their kid hanging out with the wrong crowd, right? Yeah. And it's weird. There's two different, the parents that are like kind of distant, like your parents, you end up hanging out with the wrong crowds, or you get the helicopter parents that are all up in your business, you know, vetting all your friends. Yeah. You end up in the wrong crowd. And it's like, it almost sounds, you know, easier said than done, but to avoid your kids from being in the wrong crowd, all you just need to give is your kid attention and love so they have an environment to come home where they feel like they're part of a family and they can speak their feelings, it sounds like. And it sounds like that's all you really wanted to do this whole time, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so I've never been married. I don't have any kids. Like I got locked. So I did myself 25 years in prison. I was given 30 years for robbing banks. You know, and I was 19 years old and I got out this year. So it's been just shy of a year. It hasn't been a full year, you know.
Welcome home.
But no, yeah. But I mean, I can only speak for myself, you know, when it comes to like raising kids and stuff like that. I do feel for a lot of kids though. And I see, you know, a lot of kids out there that really do need just someone, you know, at the least, you know, I mean, because I remember like I would see in people and hear like, because a lot of times like you did 16 years, so a lot of prisons they like to use lifers when they bring like the kids in and stuff like that. And I would always kind of trip, like, I don't think that, myself, I don't think stuff like that works. I think what kids need, at least kids that have like troubled environments and homes, they just need to be, all they need to do is see, you know, they don't necessarily need, they just need to know that there's an avenue, at least see that there's a way, you know, like I would like, for me, myself, I would use, like, I'm passionate about jiu-jitsu. I would use jiu-jitsu. I would be like, hey, you know, like this, come on, you know, and then just give them the ability, the choice to be like, you could do this and like, show them, look at this environment you can have. Right. You got this environment and you got this, the choices, and just always let them make that choice. So they have the confidence of saying that they made the right choice, which will build the confidence in making more right choices and the ability to make, you know, say no to all the wrong choices and have, you know, that courage because they've made, instead of just, you know, because I have a friend of mine, and I talked with him about this his name was Mike, and he's a lifer, but he actually got picked up under the wing of like Lou Ferrigno and actually the dude who was his stunt when he was doing like the whole Incredible Hulk thing and stuff like that, you know, and he was from the whole Venice area and LA area. But even he was like, you know, like he would take me, you know, everywhere. And he was like, look, just don't be a gang member. Just don't be a gang member, you know, like just this is what you could do. And the dude was huge, you know, he was like a bodybuilder, you know, and he took him everywhere, showed him everything. But he was like, but at the end of the day, the thing was like, I'm seeing him in his career, but I would get dropped off at home and it was my environment. So it wasn't like I necessarily got to make a choice. It was just kind of like, come with me. So it's like, he showed me like when I was with him, I was safe, but then eventually I still had to go home and like, that was it. So I would talk to him about like, you know, like, like, what if, you know, there were to be an avenue just like to give kids the environment or the ability, not so much to have like a big brother, but just to have, you know, an avenue to where they have a choice now, instead of having that feeling like, you know, of this or that. It's either, you know, it's the blue pill or it's the red pill type thing,
Right.
you know, where they can have something, you know. And he was like, yeah, if I had that, you know, or if something had, you know, I mean, because I mean,
No.
when I was growing up, a lot of times it was like the boys club or the YMCA, and now you don't see those anymore. And even then, those were filled with gang members because they were never in the best areas as it
Will
is.
knows that.
So you really don't.
That's where I was recruited at the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah, you know. But so I mean, yeah, there's so much out there today, and there's so many avenues, you know. And I think a lot can still be done, a lot can be done. And yeah, for me, honestly, it is what it is. My life's been the way it is, and I own everything. I don't regret anything, because everything I've done has made me who I am. And 25 years in prison, I mean, honestly, my biggest high point in my life is Camp 14, San Francisco, when I fought, because I was a wildland firefighter there, and every single, you know, foreman, the captain there, every single, you know, chief. Yeah, I mean, they became my biggest champion. Every last one of them wrote letters of recommendation for me to get to this Cal Fire Academy to get my certifications. I still talk to some of them, you know, I mean, and like just doing that really showed me. And that's where I kind of also got the idea. And I was talking with other people because they had kids who would come, and they was just like, you know, I mean, just people in general, but just like human beings, just anybody can, like, all you need is like an avenue, you know. It doesn't
Positive outlet is the way we see it.
Yeah, that you just need the ability to have that positive outlet, you know. Whatever's not for, yeah.
Can I so that's a lot, right? And you're 100% right. Let's go back to, you know, getting that 30-year sentence in prison. You were on a destructive path, right? And that destructive path was caused by many factors,
Yeah.
but a lot of which came from not getting the love in the home, right?
Yeah, and
But
you said something, bank robbery, but it obviously didn't start with a bank robbery.
No,
right?
no, nothing.
So I think where Will's getting at is when did the downhill really start to go downhill? Is that what you're getting at, Will?
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, for that right there, oh man, you know what? It all starts. So I took a group. I started doing quite a few groups, and I had a lot of time, and ironically, a lot of people always thought a lot of people thought I was a lifer. So I would get into groups, and I wouldn't find out till I'm in the group, when later on they get to talk, and they're like, "You're not a lifer," you know, and they find out how much
30 years makes you a lifer.
Yeah, pretty much.
30 years in prison, you're a lifer.
But yeah, so I ended up getting all those groups, but I found out one thing was, like, I started doing like lifer pamphlets and like lifer groups and stuff like that, you know, and I started doing a lot of self-reflect, because that's what and one thing that all of them want you to do, and they do, is go back to the first time you ever did anything wrong, like your first official crime, like what was that right there? And a lot of people, it starts off with something as simple as like shoplifting, and then you get away with it type stuff, you know. And so it's always like a theft or something, or maybe a fight or whatever, you know. And for me, it was if someone basically told me like that was cool type thing, you know, I was like, oh yeah, you know. And I remember the first time I ever got in a fight with someone, you know, and I beat them pretty bad. And I remember going back to my classroom, everybody was giving me fist bumps. And I was like, I'm the shit right now. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm about to, yeah, dude, anyone could get it. You know, I'm like, so that literally just catapulted me. I was like, if anybody had a problem, you know, like, I know just how to solve this one. Boom. And then people are just, yeah, you know, and then it, you know, so then it comes back at home. And then what ended up happening was, and this ended up kind of when I thought about this a while back, right? Because I was in a cell just for a while. I spent, altogether, I spent 20 years on a level 4 almost. I spent about 18 years. I spent probably about 15 years on 180s. you know, and I've been to shoes and everything. You know, you just sit back and you reflect and think. And I remember when I would get in a bunch of fights, and finally it came back and my dad found out. So it ended up being one of those things where it's like now I was scared of my dad because he would beat the hell out of me. So he's like, if you do this, you know, let me find out you do this again. I'm gonna fuck you up, boy, you know? And then, so now I don't want that when I come home. And then I go to school and I'm like, man, so now in my brain, I'm like, I really want these guys because I have this, I finally have people for the majority of a day, people who are just like, this dude's crazy, this dude's fun, this and that, you know, but then when I come home, so it's kind of like, man, I can't do this because now if it comes back here. So I remember the first time myself, I ended up getting into it and I walked away. I had to walk away because I thought about my dad and I felt like a coward. And I was like, man, and that hurt because people now, everyone at school and everybody, because it was public and everybody thought like, what happened to him? Like, you know, and little kids are harsh, you know, so they're like, man, you just like, that was it, huh? Like, and it's like a switch. Like you go from being like this dude right here to being like, oh, that dude ain't even all that, you know? So I remember I started fighting this thing inside me like, man, like, I don't know what to do, you know, because I really wanted that people to like me type, you know, I wanted to get that, you know, that enjoyment of just people liking to be around me and me liking to be around, you know, because you want friends. Everybody needs friends. That's how society works. That's how people are social by nature. So you want to, but so then it became like, man, I don't know what to do. And then, you know, so I had to find another way around just being, long story short, I became socially awkward now, you know, because I'm like, crap, I can't get in trouble because if my dad finds out, he's gonna beat my ass.
Right.
You know, and I don't want that for sure, you know, but my dad, yeah, I already know he don't like me as it is, and this is just how his thing is. And then so then you go to school and you're like, crap, I can't get in trouble, and so I don't know what to do. And then it was like I've already, you know, just like, so it's kind of like I'm just confused now. Like they're seeing me as I don't want to be a coward, but I want to be aggressive. I don't want to, you know, and then it was just so many things inside my head now. It was like
a lot going on in that child's head. A lot going on.
And then it was just, you know, so what ended up happening was I remember it exploded one day because I'd walked away from a few confrontations or whatever. And then I was in the stadium in a football game and I got into an argument with someone. I got so mad that I grabbed someone's instrument and I smacked the dude over the head, like right there in the middle of a football game in the stands and the crowd, everybody's looking, and I just like wore his head out, you know.
You knew your dad was coming after that, huh?
Oh man, it was a wrap. I didn't go home. So I didn't go home for a lot. Yeah, I didn't go home. And this one I found out that he was happy. My dad was like, the cops ended up finally bringing, because they found me with some other kids. We were out doing whatever, and he brought me home. And he was pissed I got caught. And he was pissed I came home, that the cops had to bring me home. So he was like, I didn't even call the cops for you. He was like, boy, why'd you even come here? Why'd you even tell him this is your house type? You know? So I'm like, oh, man. So I remember arguing with him, and then he was like, boy, if you want to fight, you know, you could fight me like a fucking man. You know, so we're in the kitchen. He's like, we're standing right here, and he squared off with me. And he's like, you could fight me like a man right now. So, and I was like I was scared to death of my dad. I won't, you know, I mean, he was my dad, huge Marine, you know, he was special forces. He was force recon. Yeah. I mean, I'm just like, man, like when I was a little kid, he was like my idol. Like this dude could do anything. I'd watch movies and be like, did you do that? Did you do that? You know, like I'm watching Navy SEAL. And like, he's like, yeah, I did this and that way, you know, but it was like, so as I got older, it kind of like I started seeing it. He just wasn't like a happy person, you know, and whatnot. And then at that point, I realized that like I could do anything so long as I don't get caught, so long as he don't know. Or I, you know, or whatever, you know, and so it's like I didn't really have a home, so I would leave. And then what ended up happening was I ended up quitting school, left school, and then I came to California because at the time I had a grandma who lived out here.
Mhm.
She lived up here. And so I asked her if I could come out here. I came out here, and I was like, all right, things are going to change now. You know, you're a grandma. You know,
You're
grandma's got
sweet. You're
grandma's
sweet. You got me. Granny got me.
Granny's got me, man. Granny's got me and a box of basics in the fridge.
Yeah.
You know, but it's good. Grandma's got me, you know. And then I still had a hard time. You know, even thinking back, it was just kind of like I don't know, you know. I still had them same social issues, you know. Meeting people was never a problem, but I just had anxiety meeting people and I couldn't explain it. Even now to this day, it's hard to explain. Like when I'd meet people, I'd have anxiety, you know, and it was just so I didn't meet a lot of people. People would have to approach me,
Right.
you know. So I remember seeing a guy, cool dude, you know, and it was his dog. He had a pit bull or something like that. And I remember I was driving and the dude was having a problem. So I was like, hey man, you need a ride, man. You need some help, you know, whatever. I ended up talking to him for a minute, you know, dropped him off. And I was like, hey man, it's good, this and that. Later on I see him. So it's like, hey, you know, and then we ended up being kind of cool, whatnot, you know. I mean, every now and then you smoke some weed, get high. So at the time, you know, I'd smoked weed off and on. So I was like, hey man, you get high, you know, and who doesn't bond over a joint type? So, you know, everybody, so you get me high.
The best relationships are built over joints.
Sure, you know, you're like, oh man, it's cool, man. Next thing you know, instead of trying to get a job or get something, you know. And then so I remember I'd kick with him every now and then, but I was just kind of like, man, these are the kind of friends I already had. I already know what kind of comes of this, you know, like, and I'm like 18 years old, 17 years old, you know, and ironically, I drove out here and I did gas runs the whole way from Texas, literally, like stop and fill up and take off, you know, all the way from Texas. So, you know, except for one point, I actually ended up coincidentally getting help from some church people in Southern California. I ended up, because I couldn't make it to a gas station, and I was like, crap. So I ended up stopping at this. I didn't know it was a church. It was crazy. There was nothing on the outside, nothing going on, you know. And they were like, "Yeah," and so they helped me out with some gas, and that got me all the way up here. But I was already kind of like, man, I really don't want this, man. And then so I started like trying to think like I already know what kind of friend groups these are. I already know kind of what's happening, man. I'm like, I got to do something different. So I liked music at the time. Loved music, played the guitar, you know. Never wanted to be no big rock star or nothing, but you know, every now and then I used to go to like Guitar Center. And at the time there was a Guitar Center. They used to have, you know, Circuit City. They turned all the Circuit Cities into Guitar Center. So I used to go over there, and I met a couple guys in there, you know, they were cool, and they were all going to Fresno State. And I was like, oh, that's so cool, man. You guys all go to college, man. So they would be going to college, they'd be doing whatever. And so I started going there. I started heading over there, and I'm like, okay, I wonder if I could go to college, man. This would be a big thing for me right now. I could kind of change some things, you know. So they were like, yeah. So I started kind of trying to fake it, kind of like because I quit school. So I'm like, hey, man, how does it go about enrolling in this thing, whatnot, you know? So I started thinking like, this is going to be a lot of money. And then so I'm like, how can I make some money? And then I was kicking it with this other guy one time, and he was talking about robbing a bank. And I was like, ooh, I could pay for college that way and whatnot. And
easy call.
Yeah. And then at the time, too, I was going to the gym. They used to have a Bally's Fitness. So they had a Bally's Fitness out here. And every now and then I would go into that Bally's Fitness, and I got cool with one of the personal trainers there. And he used to be a nutritionist for boxers. And wasn't big in a box or nothing, but I'm thinking like, man, I wonder if I could get in, because I did pretty good. I was like, hey, man, I wonder if I could get in this, like, I don't know, kickboxing or something, or, you know, fighting, whatever, you know? So he was like, he's like, I'm not into that anymore, but I know guys who do it, and I could shoot you the right direction if you want to get into it or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, cool. You know, so I go back and I'm thinking like, man, this would be fun. I could do some extreme stuff, have some fun. Maybe I could get into college. So I ended up getting at at the time was my friend, you know, and I was like, hey man, that bank you were talking about, like, have you been there? Like, how would you go about robbing a bank, you know? And he's like, I don't know, man, I don't have the courage for that, but you know, friend of mine, my cousin or whatever, like that dude's nuts. Like he does all kinds of stuff and this and that, you know. So I'm like, oh, whatever, you know. Yeah, I'd like to talk to that guy, you know. So, and coincidentally, I ended up seeing the guy later on, you know. So he ended up just bringing it all out like this and that. And I was like, oh yeah, whatever. So to make a long story short, we were actually going to rob a jewelry store. So we got guns and everything, and we were going to get the guy, we were going to tie him up, take him in the back, you know, make him give us keys, codes, whatever we needed. You know, we weren't too much tripping on the stuff up front. We're like, they got to have a safe in the back with a lot more money. You know, screw these diamond rings and stuff that, you know, they got this and that and whatnot. So we were waiting out there for a while, and then coincidence had it, man, that one day, because I guess he had scoped it out that one day, this guy decided to park in a whole different area. You know, whatever reason, whatever happened, man, you know, God blessed him that day to park in another area and walk through the front doors on the front street, and he walked in. So we were like, okay. So I was still ready to go in. I'm like gung-ho, like, well, let's just walk through the front doors. And he's like, no, I'm not. I'm about to do it. And I'm like, why not, man? We're already here, man. He's like, no. But he goes, but my cousin, you know, he has a girlfriend who works in a bank. That bank I was talking about. And that was the one I was talking about doing this and that. So I was like, all right, cool. So I'm like, let's go to that then. I was like, you willing to do that? Like right now, we're doing it or we're not, man. Like, let's go. And I'm starting to kind of be forceful with the guy. Like, look, dude, either we're going to do this or we're not, man. And he's like, all right, let's go. Yeah, for sure. So we head over there. And we drove all the way there. I remember we meet the guy. We asked him, his girlfriend didn't work in there anymore. She was gone, but he still had like the whole layout kind of thing or whatever, you know, and he was the driver. He's like, I'll be the driver. I'll take you over there and this and that. So we're like, all right, cool. So drive over there, get everything ready, get everything masked up and whatnot. And we're like, all right, park right here, do this. And we get out. And I remember I'm going through the front doors, and this dude, you know, you figured it'd be your first sign right here. But this dude, like right as the doors were going, he had a panic attack. Boom, turned around and walked right into me and everything. And I'm like, no, man, boom. You know what I'm saying? We're going in this thing, man. What are you doing? No, you know. So we go in, and I just went in like Patrick Swayze, man, you know, Point Break style, laid everybody down, had guns in people's faces, forced them to the ground, get over there, hopped it, man, no, all y'all, you know, the only people that stay standing are the registers, you know, the tellers and everything. So I made sure everybody's proned out, look down, don't look at me, look at the ground, this and that. Someone came out, they laid down, anybody came in, no, and then dropped the duffel bag, no die packs, no nothing. I will come back in, you know, we're good. Just give us what we want. We're gone type stuff. We did it, gone. And yeah, getting a high speed chase. He ends up panicking again and takes off running. Middle of the highway, takes off. So I told the driver, leave him. Sucks for him now. Just leave him.
He jumped out the car and ran?
For sure. Jumped out and took off running. Yeah, this guy was like, no, man, this is us type stuff. And we're like, shut up, dude. No. So this guy, right when the light turns and stuff like that, we're going, this dude jumps out of the car, moving everything. I'm like, leave him here, boom. So yeah, we got in a high-speed chase, then dude hit the panic, then the driver hit the panic button. We're dang near away and everything. This dude jumps out of the car while it's still moving.
Oh, man.
Jumps out of the car while it's still moving. So now I'm in a car full of guns, you know what I'm saying?
Full of money.
And all my everything, and I'm like, win, cool, win, boom. So I'm trying to get in. And then I end up going into like a canal. So I'm like, crap, now I got to abort. You know, so I get everything I can, tick what I can off, and I'm running. I'm hopping fences. And then almost got shot. I remember slipping on the fence, and the guy got tired of chasing me. He came around. He had a gun. He was just like, I'm going to just shoot you now. And I was like, dang, I turned around and looked, you know, and so I was like, all right, yeah. So I prone out. And then I go county jail. then don't say anything. Both my crime partners turn state evidence.
What?
Yeah, both of
So
them.
surprising.
Yeah, both of them right then and there. I was in and out. They're like, Mr. Kershaw, we got this and that, and they do the whole little, they're putting you under the bus, man, this and that. And I'm like, well, it is what it is. I don't know what you're talking about, man. I was asleep in the back of a car. I woke up and just seen people go. I just seen my car go. I don't know, like, just let me go. And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, I have nothing to say, man. Let me out.
So, I mean, that story is amazing.
Yeah.
Jump out of the car, moving car. One jumps out. I'm out of here. Before he jumps out the car, he turns around at the door like, all right, no. Like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
You started off robbing a jewelry store, ended up robbing a bank at the end of the day, and nobody gets away because everybody gets caught. And you do 25 years in prison.
Yeah, they split
But before that,
the driver took the stand, and that's what it was. So, yeah, he took the stand on me and pretty much said that I had put the gun to his head and forced him at gunpoint to get in a high-speed chase. And he thought he was going to die and this and that. And he had no choice but to do it. And when he jumped out of the car, it was him running from me type stuff. Yeah. So they did all that. And then the other guy took a deal, copped a deal. So, and I was the only one that went all the way to jury.
How much time did they get?
One dude went home. The dude took the stand on me. He went home right then and there. He went home. The other dude took a deal. I don't know how much time he got. I don't know. They split us up, and I didn't actually see him because right after that, they had a split. Because when I was in county jail, I had tried to kill the dude who was driving because you get the police report. And give me everything. And I'm reading like, oh, no, man. So I'm like, hey, man, make sure you're on yard, man. We need to talk about some things, man, and I was trying to get to him, but he was gone before I could get there.
He PC'd up. Yes.
For sure, yeah. And then my other crime partner ended up, so he was kind of manipulative. So he was hiding, and I just didn't kind of want to. But I was like, man, they said you said this. And he's like, nah, man, what I said was this. They're manipulating it and this and that. And I'm thinking like, man, oh man, but I just didn't want to believe it. So I'm like, I'm gonna believe him, But it was right there, and I'm like, man. So and then I got in a lot of fights. I actually kicked off a race riot with every single race in county jail, and they threw me by myself. And then he had actually a couple times left me hanging out to dry because he had actually so before how politics go, like race don't just jump on someone without getting at other people,
right?
Like, hey, and this dude this and that, and he would be like, well, you gotta do what you gotta do, but he'd get at me like, hey man, they're tripping, dude. Like they're, again, you got those people who kind of like know how your mindset is and they know how to manipulate things kind of, so they know like this dude's going to believe me type stuff, and he's like, I really don't want this dude putting me out there as doing, what I'm doing kind of right now. So if I could get rid of him, I'd have this whole area and I could be kind of cool,
Right.
So he would get at me and tell me like, hey dude, you're good. I got you. But we were in completely different areas, but we go to the same yard and he's like, yo, you're good, man. I got you, man. Don't trip. And I'm like, man. And I'd ask him like, dude, like, why would they say you said this, man? He's like, oh, they're just making shit up. But when we go to court, man, I'll deny, like, they're got to take the stand or whatever. And I'm thinking like, oh, that's true. Cool, whatever, And then I'd get someone else would do something. And he was getting at them like, hey, if you got to remove him, you got to remove him. And then he'd get at me and be like, hey, man, they're tripping on you, dude. This one dude over there is tripping, this and that. So I would immediately go from there and go attack him, and then leave, come back, and gone. And then eventually they're like, we can't send you back to that. You're too much. So I ended up being by myself. I was in the hole the entire time I was in county jail, a little over a year fighting this case. And then I got sent to CDC.
So
this is before the CDCR. This is CDC at the time, not even CDCR yet.
Yeah, the California Department of Corrections.
Yeah.
And being a 180, I'm assuming they sent you up the way. What? Pelican Bay.
Yeah. So
High Desert.
At first, they send me to Tracy. So I'm at Tracy.
Tracy.
Yeah.
Oh, for reception.
DVI. Yeah. So I'm in DVI, and man, I was just so mad. I was like, because literally I got sentenced to 30 years in prison. Technically altogether it was 30 years, 4 months, you know? So give me 30 years, 4 months. And he calculated that because the judge specifically said, you cannot get out. I don't believe someone like you should be out. People will die if I let you out anytime soon. You, Mr. Kershaw, need to be so old when you get out that either you are unable to commit another crime or you will do life in prison as it is by age. He goes, so I cannot in good conscience allow you out. So he calculated everything right there and did the math. 30 years, 4 months is exactly 25 years. So that's how he gave me a life sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So he gave me 30 years, 4 months is exactly 25 years. With
85%.
With 85%. 85%. So I'm pissed off now. I'm like, man, and then 6 days later, I'm on a bus. You know, because they're like, we can't have this dude here in this jail because he's kicked off all this stuff. So I get to Tracy, and at the time I'm thinking like, man, I'm just angry and I'm trying to find something, man. Like, oh man, you know. And for a while I kind of was doing like a little spiritual journey, and I was trying to figure this out and figure that out, and like, you know. But at the same time, I was like, I'm just screwed. I'm just tired of the world. I'm tired of people. I'm tired of the world. I'm tired of family. Like now, I got life, and I literally was like, I just don't want to be with anybody now.
Right.
I don't care. If I'm going to die, I'd rather not die because of someone else's drug problem. I'd rather not die because someone else just did this to this guy. Like, I just don't care anymore. So, fuck you all, you know? So they send me there, and I remember they sent this dude to my cell that had a Swazi on his forehead. Like, I'm talking about all out blocked in Swazi on his forehead, right? And I'm thinking like, so he's like, what's up, comrade? And I'm like, hey, man, you're not coming in here. I'm just not with your program, man. Me and you got different programs, so you're not coming in here, man. And he's like, all right, man, cool, man. So he goes down, talks to COs, whatever. I don't know what was said, but long story short, they come up to the cell and they're like, hey, man, and it was about time for them to leave. It was almost 9 o'clock. It's probably like 8 o'clock at night. So they're like, no, he's coming in here for the night. And I'm like, no, I know how that goes. You know, you come in here for the night and he's stuck here for the next 2. I'm good on that. No, I don't want to, he's not coming in here. And they're like, well, you don't run this. You know, Kershaw, you don't run this. This is our place, you know, and you'll go wherever we tell you to go and who. And I was like, no, I'm not. And we're done arguing. So whatever's going to happen is going to happen. But tonight I'm going to be sleeping alone. So they popped the door and I got off on the COs. Both of them right there. Boom, on the tier. And we're on the second tier.
Day one, huh?
Day one right there. I'm like, screw this. So I get off on the COs, right? I'm out on the tier. I'm just, as long as I can get out on the tier, you know, they don't have me boxed in. Then I got on the tier, and then I started getting kind of like, man, what if I fall off the tier and like, or I get thrown off?
Throw you off.
Yeah. And I'm thinking they throw. I'm like, no. So now I'm just like trying to pin them while I'm trying to fight. But you know, I mean, as it is, you know, you there's no win in that one. You know,
not at all.
There's not. So yeah, I got beat pretty bad. You know, and then they hurried up and processed. So I get in there. He wasn't my cellie.
You got that single night in the hole.
He wasn't my cellie. But so they ended up processing me really quick. And then they're like, all right, Mr. Kershaw. They're like, we got just the place for you. So this was 2002, 2003, right? So I remember going to R&R. Don't really have anything, you know, because you come from county jail, you just got the one brown bag. That's it. You know, the little brown pack, you know, with just, if you got envelopes, you got your one little thing of deodorant, a toothpaste, or whatever it is, you know, maybe 2 soups if you come up, you know. But so I got my little brown bag, and you go to R&R and they're processing everybody, and you're looking on the bag and you're looking at all the acronyms, you know, CTF, you know, SATF, or you know, CSP, SAC, or whatever like that. Mine said HDSP. And I remember looking
Desert State Prison.
Oh, yeah. I remember looking at the guy, and I was like, hey, what's HDSP? And he was like, that's High Desert. And then remember, right when he said High Desert, everybody looked at him. And he said, that's where you're going? And I was like, that's what's on my bag right there. And he goes, man, you're about to have some fun. He goes, and then early 2000, that was the worst prison in California. That meant people. I remember when I got there, people were stabbing other people trying to get to Pelican Bay. Like, people were raising their hands to get to Pelican Bay. Like, it was bad. Helicopters landing on the yard, you know.
Wow.
Blacks hated whites. Every white had to die. Every black had to die. You know, every Hispanic was just like hated. Like, it was just like, that was the most hated. Like, that was hell. Everybody
did
hated
4
everybody.
years there.
Yeah, everybody hated everybody. And they sent me
Yeah.
right to C upper. So they sent me right to C5. And they're just like, here you go, Mr. Kershaw. You like to have fun. And I remember getting there, and it was so cold, and it was so late at night. It's probably like midnight by the time I get there and go in. And the lieutenant made sure to have a talk with me because, you know, anytime you fight a CO or anything, attack a CO, that goes on. So they got that paperwork saying this dude right here likes to attack cops. You know, like that's this. So he's like, hey, Mr. Kershaw, I don't know what happened at your last place you were at. I don't know what you think, you know, kind of program you want to run, but I'm going to tell you this right here, right now. I don't care what you do. I don't care who you do it to, as long as they're not wearing green. You go out here and you poke, stab, fight anyone you want. You just make sure everything you do is wearing the same color you are, you know, and none of them are green. And that's all I care about, you know. He's like, go to your cell and enjoy your night, whatever. So I get there and they were locked down. And I remember just like tripping because everybody, you know, they open the doors for showers. So the next day showers come. So everybody walks by and you're the new guy. So everybody's looking at your tag. You know, the black dudes are looking at the tag, wanting to see if it's a black dude on there, you know, or if it's a white dudes are looking for white dudes, you know. So they all come and I'm like, just not wanting to do with anybody. And I remember just trying to like just figure something out. Like now, like it's about to get bad. This is bad now.
Yeah.
So I was ignoring everybody. Everybody come to my door. I'm looking at them and then I'm just looking away, you know? And they're like, hey, bro. White dudes are like, hey, bro. Hey, man. Hey, what's your name, man? And I just ignored them and I'd look down and just, you know, I had a little papa and I acted like I was just reading that. Like that was the most interesting thing in the world, man. You know, the 10 pages, I was like, this is a novel I'm reading right now and I can't miss a page, you know? Black dudes, and they just keep going. Hispanics come by, you know, they'll be like, hey, man, you know, who you run with? Are you a Wood? You white? You know, this and that. And I'm ignoring everybody. And then a CO came to my door and he's like, hey, man. He's like, hey, you good to talk to me for a minute, man? And I'm like, what's going on, man? He's like, I'm going to pop you out. I'm going to handcuff you. I'm going to escort you to the office. And he's like, I'm going to talk to you for a second, then we're going to take you back. But he was like, we're going to play. And I'm thinking, like, what is he talking about? You know, like, so he takes me out and the sergeant's in. There's a couple COs and there's like, hey, man, you got some problems, man. You're not talking to anybody. And you're pretty much not liked already, man. And we've already got word that no one here likes you. You're not picking a side, man. This is a place where you pick sides. And you have to pick a side. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do me, man. I pick my side. You know, I'm my biggest advocate now. He's like, that sounds good, man. It sounds real moral and righteous, and that's how a man should be. But here, that's how men die. You know, he goes, so my advice to you is, man, you're white. You got blue eyes. At the time, I had red hair, beautiful long red locks. It was gorgeous. You know? But I had red.
Me too.
I had red hair, you know, and he was like, there's no getting around anything else, man. You know, you don't look like, we can't do anything for you. But he's like, man, you need to figure shit out. And you need to do it fast, man, because here in a minute, we're about to start doing, because they just had a massive race riot about 8 months before. He goes, we're about to start doing controlled releases and you need to figure your shit out fast. So I remember going back and I'm like, man, I don't know what to do. So I remember just like getting on my knees and I was like, man, like God, whoever you are, man, it gets me even now. I was like, man, God, whoever you are. I was like, Buddha, Jesus, you know, Allah, whoever you are, whatever you are. If you're nothing out there and you're just a universe, do something for me now. Like, I don't mind dying. I remember specifically saying, I don't mind dying. If I die, I die. I don't care. Like, this is just me. I've only lived on this world 18 years and it's been shit. So just end it now. If that's going to be a mercy, then let that be my mercy. If you want me to live longer than however it is, just don't let me die because of someone else. It's probably I'm tired of living like this. Like I literally was just done. So I was like, just please, whoever you are, whatever, just help. You're the only one I'm gonna ask for help. I'm sick of everything and people. And the next day, it was right after breakfast. My neighbor was this black dude. He was like, "Hey, dude." He was like, "Hey, man, you good over there?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm cool, man." He's like, "Hey, man, you need anything, let me know, man, this and that." He goes, "You need anything to read or anything like that, man, just let me know. I'll fish it to you." And I was like, "I appreciate that, man. I'm good. Thank you, man." He's like, "Some chaplains should be walking through at some point." So he goes, "If they're walking through, I'll send one your way, man. And they have some stuff too you can read or whatever." And I'm like, "All right, cool, good looking out." And then the man came to my door. And I was like, "Hey, I'll never forget him. His name was Salah Mohammed." And I was like, he's like, "Hey, man, do you okay? You want to talk? Is everything all right?" I was like, "Yeah, man." I was like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm the Muslim chaplain and this and that." And I was like, "Oh, I've read some of the stuff. Like at the time I've already read a Quran, but it was in English, little Mamadou Picta, all English stuff like that." And I was like, "Yeah, I've read this and that," and we were talking for a minute. And he was like, would you like me to give you a Quran?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'll take that, sure." And he hands me a Quran, little Sahih International, he reads it, and he was like, "I'll be back tomorrow or whatever." He goes, "If you want, I'll come back and bring some more." I was like, "Yeah, for sure." So he comes back again. And I was like, "Oh, man, you came back for sure." And he was like, "Yeah." And he asked some stuff. And he was like, "Did you read anything?" And this and that. And he started talking about Islam. And then what did it was, I remember I was like, "I don't understand this other stuff on the side." He's like, "Oh, that's Arabic." And he started explaining like the language, and basically the Quran technically is Arabic and whatnot. And then he recited it for me. And I was like, "Can you read it?" He's from Libya. So I'm like, "Can you read Arabic?" And he's like, "Yeah." So I was like, "What does it say?" And he told me what it says. It's right there. I was like, "No, read it in Arabic." And so he recited the Quran for me, and he recited the whole thing. And I remember it was so awesome, man. And I was like, "This is so cool." I was like, will you please recite some more?" He literally stood there at my door for 15 minutes, man, just reciting Quran. I didn't want to hear anything else. He just recited Quran like that was it. And I was like, man, that is the most beautiful thing, and then he explained it to me and he broke it down. And I was like, man, I want to be a Muslim. I was like, I would like that. And he was like, well, he was like, I want you to understand before you do that, both the religious aspect of it, we believe in one God, you believe in Allah, you worship one God, we were created to worship him, and you believe in Muhammad is the messenger of Allah, he's the fulfillment of all the prophets, and he explained it all. And I was like, yeah, man, I want to learn how to pray. I want this, man. I need something. He goes, okay, now you need to understand also that you're in an environment that is not going to take too kind to what you're about to do. Because they're going to consider you black. They're going to consider Islam is considered a black religion and not a white religion. So, I stand fully by you. If you choose to be a Muslim, Allah says that, the blood of a Muslim is sacred. So if you do that, I will do everything in my power to support you. And I was like, well, I would like to do that. Mm-hmm. So he went and got some of the Muslims and whatnot. And then, so some of them came to my door and they were just like, hey, man, just so you know, this ain't a joke. You want to be a Muslim, man, that's awesome, man. But you need to be really sincere in this, man. Don't, this ain't the place to play with stuff like that. And I'm like, no, man, this ain't a joke to me. My life's not a joke to me, man. No, I want this. And even if you can sit in your cell, man, do what you got to do and I'll do what I got to do. And he was like, no, as long as you're sincere, man, I give you my word, man. You know, we're going to be here for you. You know, we just need to know, man, that just you need to understand that lives are about to be put on the line right now. You know, because there's a serious thing going on right here, and a lot of people are going to be getting hurt because you want to be a Muslim. You know, and that's a noble thing to do, and it's honorable, and what you're doing is for God, and we stand by that 100%. We love Allah, we love Islam, and as long as you love it just as much, man, everybody here is willing to die for you, but you need to be willing to die for yourself. And yeah, that's literally how, you know, and I was like, yeah, you know, that's something I could live and die for.
Wow.
You know, for sure.
It sounds like in prison, you know, we had a previous guest, his name was Kuya, and he was a Filipino, and he became Muslim as well. And he said the same thing, that it was like him, the Filipino dude with all the blacks. And it sounds like you got this blue-eyed, redheaded white guy becoming Muslim, and obviously you're not running with the whites at this point, right?
Yeah,
so
now
high desert,
like for you.
High desert,
and then
one of the most dangerous prisons.
Yeah, it was bad. Immediately there was a hit, but I mean, it was like on site. I was not. So whoever called the shots at the time was like, I was not allowed to leave the building now, basically.
Yeah.
If you seen me in a rotunda, if you see me I was not allowed. For all whites, you know, it was on site. Immediately, he's not to even be allowed to leave the building type thing, you know. All the blacks now started coordinating, well, Muslims. And that was another thing I did too. That was another thing. I was like, okay, I want to be clear about one thing and one thing only right now. And I was like, I want you to tell everybody this, that I don't run with blacks. I run with Muslims. I get how the program is here and this and that, but I at least want them to know that if you're a Crip, if you're a Blood, don't ride with me. I only want Muslims with me. Mm-hmm. And I ended up telling the brother's name was Askari. He was the one who came to my cell, and he was like, that's cool. He goes, we'll see what happens, you know, but I will let them know and this and that. And a Blood dude did come to my door and was like, hey, man, this and that. And, man, this ain't a joke. And I'm like, dude, you can go away. But with all due respect, man, if I'm gonna be out there and something happens to me, at least I want my people with me, and I want 100%. I remember reading the story of I don't know how much you know about Islam, but I remember reading the story of the Battle of Badr, and that was the first ever battle in Islam, the first ever battle, you know, and it was for Allah, and it was all the polytheists were coming to attack the Muslims, and there was only 200 Muslims, and they fought over 2,000 people, and it was just them. That was it, and they did amazingly great. Allah gave them like the most amazing victory. So much so that everybody fought in that battle of Badr, you know, Allah sent down revelation that they've been forgiven for everything. And so many things happened to them. So many amazing things happened to all of them their whole lives and whatnot, you know, and they were so small. So I was like, you know what? You know, I don't want to taint anything like that. I want, you know, my intentions to be holistic. So I want only the people with me Muslims. That's it. I don't want any, if you're anything other than a Muslim, just enjoy your day and don't let me ruin that. You know, I'm going to go do what I got to do. And I told them, if anything happens, I will be, which ended up, you know, I mean, I was like, anything happens, I will be the one that initiated it. You know, I 100%. And at the same time, if no one should be prevented from Islam just by race. So if I have to be the one to pave the way now for every race on a level 4, then I'm going to do whatever the fuck I got to do now. You know, and let's go get some. Wow. You know, and that's kind of, you know, you're young. You know, they have that saying, there's no bigger zealot than a new convert. You know, so all of a sudden now I had this again. Now I got this friend group, and they're like a brotherhood now, and they're willing to help me and protect me. So now I got to like show them that I'm worth everything, you know? So I'm like, you know, and then now I have something to go off of, and I'm like, now I have God, you know, on my side. So like, yeah, for sure, I'm willing to go to the yard every time now, you know. Yeah, and whoever's got a problem with this I'm gonna bust your head, you know. And that in itself ended up being a lot. And I remember I would even get called to the side by some of the brothers, like, man, you know, just you gotta calm down, man. It's not that serious, man. You know, you're too headstrong right now, man. You know, I get you're young, but
Did anything ever happen? I mean, because I know the place that you were in, and
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I caught shoot. I almost caught a life sentence at one point. Lancaster, I actually almost fought a life sentence. Yeah, I caught a deer, throwing everything, almost killed the dude. Yeah,
over being Muslim.
yeah, well, yeah. So they had honeycomb doors, and I was praying,
Yeah.
and I would recite the Quran, and I was doing the adhan, and he ended up yelling when I was doing it one time, yelling out of his window some pretty degrading things towards me, and the adhan. So I just didn't say, and I didn't say anything to anybody. I didn't let anybody know or anything. We were down. We were on lockdown at the time. And right when the door was cracked, I just ran over there, bust his head wide open, and just smashed his head in the concrete on the floor, and just bashed it. Yeah, and just went on him, And then, I was in the shoe for that one, and then I ended up opening up Kern Valley. So they're like, "All right, we got just a place for you, bud." And we're opening up a brand new level 4 180. So you can all figure this one out.
New Delano.
Yep. So yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Kern Valley State Prison.
So let me ask you this, because I mean, I'm pretty sure we could be on here all night talking about your story and experiences in prison.
Yeah.
Crazy. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
What eventually saved your life and helped you to make it on Post P right now?
Man.
25 years later.
Man, you know what? My biggest so here's what so they ended up changing a lot of laws, okay? And what they did was they started, releasing a lot of people and whatnot, and then they redid the entire point systems in prison. So when they redid the point systems, they redid everything for the levels. So they ended up, when they first started that lawsuit for the overcrowding thing, and the feds were threatening to take over and whatnot, they started with all the lower levels, and they're kicking all these dudes out. Now, I was on a level 4 still. So they had to refill some of those, because, a lot of them level 1s are like support yards and stuff like that. So they started giving people overrides from level 2s and 3s. So basically it's like a trickle down effect. So the yard where I was at started flipping to level 3 and whatnot. So I got to kind of stay there because I was on the cusp, and then I got an override because at the time I was doing college courses.
Right.
So that
Where were you at that time?
I was at Pleasant Valley. So I remember I was like, you know what, man, I started doing college. I started getting into college, and I was like, man, I want to figure something out. I want to try to start learning something. So I remember I started just hustling. I was selling oil for Scantrons. If you had a book, I'm like, hey man, look, can I use your book with you, man? When you're not reading it, I'll read it so I could take that course. And it might have been a psychology course. It might have been so whatever it is. I'm like, this is the degree I'm going for. I was going for social and behavior sciences. I ended up getting 4 degrees. I got 4 degrees while I was in prison. Wow. So, and then I was like, man, when you're done, let me get that book off you. So I worked in the kitchen, and I got kitchen on. I'd make breakfast sandwiches, and I'd run to the yard with the breakfast sandwiches, and I'd sell those for books and stamps. And I'd take those books and stamps, and I'd go to dudes with the college books, and I'd be like, I'll give you these for your college book. And I'd get that book, and then I'd take that course. And when I was done, I'd find another dude with a book, and I'm like, hey, I need that book. I'll give you this book if you give me that book. And he'd be like, yeah. So and I'd be like, boom, and I'm buying Scantrons and pencils and everything. That's how I was doing it all. And I was able to earn my degree just hustling and willing and dealing like that, 1-2 courses at a time. If I could take something with someone, I did, and my first one was social and behavioral sciences. And then I got a degree in sociology. And then I just started getting into math, and I was like, I always sucked at math, and I gave up on myself. And I was like, I know I can do this. So I got a degree in math, in science and mathematics.
Wow. What?
Yeah. So I started doing that, and I'm thinking like, man, dude, like I just totally wrote myself off. And I was like, man, I'm doing this now. And then I got an override to Soledad. So they needed people, I guess. They wanted to bring a whole bunch of level 4s down and whatnot. And I got a 20-point override to Soledad. So get over there. Yeah, they gave me a massive override, so because I hadn't caught any 115s in a minute, and I was positive programming. I was in groups. I started doing a lot of groups. I did a victims awareness.
I love that one.
It was amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Victims awareness was great. Victims impact. I did a CGA. I got into CGA and I started doing like Criminal Gangs Anonymous and stuff. You know, I did that one. I did anger management. I started doing a bunch of groups and whatnot.
You do AVP?
Alternative Violence Program.
Yeah.
Yes, I did that.
I
Wait,
like
no,
that one.
That's the 12-week you got to do. No, I wanted to get in that one. You had to. I was
No,
on
not the 12-week one. The weekend one when it was like 8 hours on Saturday and then 5 hours on Sunday, and in one weekend you get the certificate.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to do that one. No, I know what you're talking about.
Man.
Yeah, no, I heard that was a going. That was it. So yeah, so I wasn't in that one at the time, but I was doing a bunch of other ones. I even did like AA, NA. I was just like trying to figure it all out, you know. But I was like, I'm in this stuff because when I started studying a lot of psychology and sociology, and I started introverting everything, and I started using myself as like kind of like the get, because you can't go to yard and start psychoanalyzing a bunch of people, you know. Like, man, tell me, you know, about your childhood. What happened to you, man?
Tell me about your trauma.
Yeah, talk about some fucked up shit, bro. You know, but I think people do that, and they do that as like as an outlet. People make jokes. It's kind of like the whole sex playing thing. You know, you're not allowed to be with women. You can't be. So it's like the outlet kind of, you know, it's a way to deal with just uncomfortable situations. So it's like, for instance, my dad beat me. And it was like, well, let's see who got beat the worst. And you crack joke, but it's kind of like a way of dealing with trauma and like bonding at the same time over similar upbringing type stuff, you know. So I ended up, you know, catching on to certain things, and I would use myself as like I would kind of like analyze myself, you know. I'd put myself in situations. So I'd be like, man, did this happen to me? Was this, you know, did I act like this, or is this my mindset? You know, do I see things like this? You know, or if I was in this situation, like honestly, how would I see myself? So I did all that, and I ended up getting a SOLDAD, and that's where I finished it, my last degree. And then they was like, my counselor at the time was like, hey, you are about to qualify for fire camp. And you can go to fire camp, and they got these benefits and this and that. And then the crazy thing is, I was like, man, for years, like it was like a year ago, I was on a level 4. Like, this is nuts. Within like a year and a half, I went from a level 4 to a level 3, spent like 7 months on a level 3, and then went to a level 2, you know, because it was like all lifers. Because at CTF SOLDAD, they had the cell, and it was just all lifers. And it was a bunch of dudes I had known. So it was awesome. So I get there, and I ain't seen some dudes I've been in like a couple prisons with, and ain't seen in a while. And I'm like, dude, you know. So I was like, man, it was awesome. And then, so I'm like, cool, man, I've never seen this happen. Like, this is crazy. Like a year ago, like I was crazy. I was level 4, and I get here, and now you're talking, I go to fire camp. Like, what? I don't even know what this is, but they're like, you can fight fires. I'm like, fight fires? I don't even know what that means, but who doesn't want to do that? So I'm like, yeah, man. So I get there. I'm in Jamestown, you know, and that place was crazy, man. And then they ended up making me do an extra year, you know, and I was like, man, so I was there for a couple years, finally had to do my FA, your firefighter training, your PFT, did all that. And they sent me to Camp 14. I go to San Francisco. They send me down there, man, and I'll never forget it. You go to LA County, they're known for one thing, and that's their hikes. You are a billy goat when you go to LA County. Well, you run mountains, and there's only one way to run, and that's up. You know, they say what goes up must come down, except for LA County. What goes up must go up even more. You know, in our I remember the captain, the foreman called me over there, man. You got to pass your hikes to get on a crew. So you don't pass your hikes, they send you back to Jamestown. They send you somewhere else or whatever, but you got to pass a certain amount of hikes. So he gets up there and he's like, hey, man, you did pretty good and this and that, you know. So I ran up. I'm like, man, I dig this and this and that. He goes, I'm going to tell you like this. He goes, I don't care what you did. You know, I don't see, because, you know, fire camp, you wear orange, you know. Right. You know, so he goes, I don't care what you did, and I'm not going to see you in orange, anything. I don't care, man. You know, if you're on my crew, I don't know what crew you're going to go to, but if you're on my crew, I'm going to see you as a man. I'm going to see you as a firefighter. And as long as you act like that, I'm going to treat you like that. And I'll never treat you as anything other than a man. So you come out here, and whatever you want to do, if this is it, I will do whatever I can to make sure this happens for you. If it's not what you want to do, then it's not what you have to do. You can do anything else, you know? So I'm like, awesome, dude. Yeah, cool, man. And then one by one, I made crew and we'd go out there and train. And I was like, man, this is so cool. And I'm starting at the end. I'm on a McLeod. I'm scraping, and I'm like, man. And I'm seeing these dudes with these chainsaws, and I'm like, man, it just looks like so fun. And they're like, that's like the hardest job. And I'm like, well, that's the job I want. That's the hardest job. I'm like, give me that chainsaw. And they're like, you can work your way up this and that. So we start hiking. I'm like, let me hike with the chainsaw. And I'm running up mountains with the chainsaw. And I'm like just loving every bit of it, man. And they gave me basically like free reign to just like be me, and they're like, dude, whatever you want to do, man, we got you, man. Just, as long as you just want to be a great person, as long as you just want to benefit and just succeed. And they were just, and anytime I wanted to do anything, like I'd go out there and ask like, hey man, how do you do this? Before I was even on a saw, I'm like, yeah, I had a couple people that were awesome on a saw. I'm like, hey man, could you show me how to work one of them things, man? How to, because you don't just get a chainsaw and cut, now there's a whole technique, there's a whole thing that goes with it. And you got to be able to cut for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of that thing. And there's a lot of techniques and stuff. So they'd show me a lot of things, and I'd go out there when they'd clean it and when they'd fix it and stuff like that. And they helped me. And then, when we train, they'd call me up there. The foreman, they'd call me up and be like, hey, you can get you a little trigger time, man. Come on. So I'd go up there with, at the time, as a swamper, who was an awesome dude. He was a soft for a while, and he'd be like, all right, just do this and do this. Picture this. This is your spec, and he'd do this. And, I just got to really work my ass off. And the more I worked, the harder I worked, because I really enjoyed it. I was like, man, they really respected that. And they so many more amazing things came my way just because of my work ethic, and I was like, man, and they appreciated that. So they were just like, man, you just keep doing what you're doing, man. And I was just like, yeah, like this is like the best thing ever. I was like, can I do this when I get out, and they're like, yeah, man, you can do anything, man. For sure. If this is what you want to do, man, we'll do anything we can to make you a firefighter, And then they got the Ventura program. I was like, oh man, I got to do that. I got to do that. Yeah. Anything I can do, So they're like, for sure. And then every last one of them wrote letters of recommendation, everything for me, and like to the last, I even ran the bear, which is a competition. Everything Camp 14, I was about everything. Like, my foreman was D Martini. And, he was so awesome, man. Such an amazing person, man. And he was just so cool. Like, if you were just an awesome dude and you really busted your ass, man, he did everything he could to help you and taught you whatever you could. Smith is another on crew 2. Poro, I still taught. I mean, all these foremen, captain over there was just so awesome, man. Like, if you really want to do this and if you really go out there and give good work ethic, and like, that was really where I learned also that, the harder you work, you will always outdo anybody with talent, man. Like, that's just how life is. And, life life is like, I mean, you go out life, and I equate life skills with two things: jiu-jitsu, because I love jiu-jitsu. Everything goes back to jiu-jitsu with me, but jiu-jitsu, and also like hiking, I mean, shit's rough, and you get like a little ways up, your chest is burning, your legs are burning, your hips hurt, your quads burn, and that's just how it is. But you have this, so long as you just don't stop. That's the whole thing. Just don't stop. Don't ever stop, man. And that's just how life is. You can never give up on yourself. You are your biggest advocate or your worst enemy, man. And we all need to be our biggest advocates, man. You just don't ever give up on yourself, man, because there's so much to accomplish for just everybody, and that's your true potential. Like David Goggins calls it the 40% rule. Like, every time you go on and you push yourself the hardest and you think you've gotten to just where you can't go anymore, that's your 40% potential. That's all you still have 60% untapped potential right there. And I've literally been on hikes and I've been like, my chest hurts. Like, I've literally not exactly had thoughts like, I feel like I might die right now. Like, this, there's no way in hell this could be good for my heart right now. And I'm a healthy person. I eat healthy. I run, I hike, I run a chainsaw, but there's no way that this could be, and I'm still going and I'm going. And there's people half my age way behind me, and I'm 43, I'm 44 years old now, And I'm just like, man, this is so awesome, man. And, I mean, and I learned that really, as long as you put in the work and the effort and you really, respect yourself and what you do and give everything your all, and you just keep going, like, that's all it is, man. It's an endurance. That's what life is, an endurance game. Everything you do, it's an endurance game. Can you outlast the person next to you? If you can outlast the person next to you, you will succeed 100% of the time. I guarantee you it.
That reminds me of two sayings, right? Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And then the other saying is the hardest workers always are the luckiest, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what it all comes down to. You can have all the skill in the world, all the talent in the world, but if you're not going to work for it, you're not going to be prepared when it comes. So you're in Fresno now. How'd you get in Fresno and what are you doing?
So I had to parole back here, and I'm in Fresno. I finished the whole little wildlands program and everything, got all that, and I was like, I'm good. I'm not doing the rest of it because I'm good on doing like the station stuff. That's not my thing. I put in my application. I pretty much already have a camp I'll be going to. I want to stay kind of around here because I love my jiu-jitsu school, man. I train out at Elite Jiu-Jitsu here, and I've been competing now out of there. You know, I just won a couple gold medals in both gi and no gi at the Jiu-Jitsu World League Finals 4. Stockton, I got another competition coming up. You know, I love that place. The environment is just so amazing. The people are amazing. The instructors, like, this is the best, dude. He's so awesome. Marty is so cool, man. And there's just so much to learn from right there, man. It's such a great outlet. And jiu-jitsu is just like the perfect metaphor for life. Everything about it is just so, you know, and like, you go in, and even to this day, I still have butterflies in my stomach when I'm in roll. When he starts calling out for live rolls, I'm like, man, this, you know, but I make sure to just, you know, it's just, I give it everything I have. And I don't back down from anything, you know, and I just do my best and everything. And I just enjoy the journey because that's what life is. It's all about a journey, you know. And Eric Thomas, I listen to a lot of motivation. I listen to a lot of people, and Eric Thomas is one of them. And one of the things he said is,
E.T.
You know, what you want. Yeah. He said, what you want or who you want to be or anything, you know, it has to be greater than what you currently have, you know. What you want has to be stronger than what you have now, you know. And every morning I wake up, and that's, you know, that's my go-to. You know, I have in everything. It's like right now I'm working at this little small job, right? And I've literally, like, I'm so passionate about jiu-jitsu and just better myself right now and doing everything I can because I, you know, luckily I have this job. I went out to the camp in Mendocino and to Chamberlain Creek Fire Center, and immediately they wanted me. They're like, man, you got a spot right now on Crew 1. All you have to do is say yes. And I was like, run that, you know. And last year they got the 3rd most fire hours, and they was like, man, if you want to cut line for us, if you want to work, man, you have a spot right here. And the battalion chief stopped me on my way out and was like, man, please, you know, it's accept this offer, and we'll do everything we can to get you more certifications, teach you everything. Just, man, you want to do this, you will do this. And I'm like, it's me. So yeah, I'm waiting on the email for the season to begin. I already put in my application. And it'll get submitted to all the camps as of January 2025. And I already have a couple camps wanting me, you know, but I already have one pretty much that I'm going to go to, that I'm going to accept, you know, so I can go work out of there and start my career as a firefighter because there's so many amazing. I mean, I remember, man, what really did it for me too was what I love about that job is not just so much the hard work, because it's hard, intense work, you know, and you get to really test your limits. You get to push yourself. I mean, you find a point a lot of times, like, to where you can't, like, go, but you still have to, you know, and I love that. Like, I love anything strenuous, hard. I love hard work, and I love doing good things now. I get, you know, all the stuff I've done, like, this is kind of my way of earning my forgiveness too, because you get to do so many amazing things and people never know who you are. You know, you get to save people's homes, save people's properties, people's livestocks, and they'll never see the face of the person that did that for them, you know, and I get to enjoy that because it's like when I leave a place, it's like, man, that person has a home, that person has a family. He worked hard for that place, you know, to raise a family, and, you know, they could come home now. They get to come home and still have a place that's not burnt down, you know, so you don't, you know, you're not going to go into debt. You're not going to have to, you know, use up your insurance, use anything, you know. You get to come home and you get to still, you know, keep your livestock, you know, you still get to keep, you know, your comfortable place of living, you know, and that's because I got to cut line around your house, and I got to prevent that fire from reaching your place. So, and that's some amazing things that we get to do. And I love that right there. And I like that I will never be known for that. You know, I mean, you get to do some amazing things and you get to do it discreetly.
Yeah. You know, we have a sponsor for Post P. runs jiu-jitsu, who allows our youth free memberships to their jiu-jitsu studio.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, and we have a couple of people, well, one guy in our group, our men's group, who was in prison, and he wants to come home and do the he's supposed to go in January. I think that's what he's waiting for. He gets out in December. In January, he's waiting on the call. So it's so much overlapping through your story and some of the people who are in our program. So yeah, man. I mean, your story is nothing short of amazing. And just in prison, I'm pretty sure they still talking about you. You know, like you really and you did it in such a place that, I mean, I'm scared for you, and I'm looking at you, and I'm like, it's like a book that you already know the end of it, but like, oh my God, is he gonna die? Like that's how I'm hearing your story, and yet I'm looking at you,
Some close calls, man.
man.
You know what I love
it's,
too?
It's amazing, man.
I love that, you know, you're very hard-headed, you know, which is good and bad. That's what got you into the trouble, but it's also what makes you who you are and successful too, because it sounds like through a teenager, through a kid, through prison, through becoming Muslim, through, you know, fire crews to jiu-jitsu, you did it your way, right?
Yeah.
You didn't join the brotherhood of the whites. You didn't do any of that. You didn't conform to peer pressure. You know, it was always been like, this is my way. Oh, that's the hardest job? Chainsaw? I'm going to do that. Oh, jiu-jitsu? I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're telling me I can't be Muslim? I'm going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this guy has a swastika on his head? No, you're not my celly. You know what I mean? I love that, you know, in this day and age where everyone just cares about what other people think and conforming and fitting in. Like, I know you said you never felt like you fit in, but that's also a strength of yours, because that's what leaders do, right? Yeah. Leaders don't just sit there and sit back and let things happen that, you know, oh, well, as long as I don't want to ruffle any feathers, you're like, no, I stand for something. And I love that about you. That's what I hear when I hear this interview. And, you know, that's encouraging, you know, to me and Will. I know we're both that way, that there's still people in today's day and age that stand for something. And I like that. And it's done your way.
Yeah, I mean, I like to say, I mean, if anything, that, yeah, for sure, I was real hard-headed. I kind of still am, but I'd like to say at least now I'm more focused with it. I try to use it for more positive reasons instead of like, it's my more guided now, you know, and at least what I do, it's just, I have direction and I have more purpose. You know, you give a man a sense of purpose, you know, and you give him means to attain that, like he'll crawl across shards of glass to obtain that, you know. And that's kind of like how, like, that's kind of like me right now, you know, and every day, like, I know I'm a, you know, I mean, diamonds are built under the most intense pressure, you know, and that's kind of how, like, I see things, you know. Matter of fact, going back to Eric Thomas, he gave a great example. He said, man, we're like an arrow, you know, and God is the person controlling it. You know, he notches you and he pulls it back, and it's, you feel that tension. You're like, man, I can't take much more. And he pulls it back further, and you're like, man, this is a lot right here, man. I please, I can't do any more. Like, you think this is all you have. And then he pulls it back just a little bit further. And it's like that tension is just too much to bear. And you think it's too, and then he just lets you go, you know, and just boom, you just smack through a bullseye, you know, like that was that was your purpose, right? You know, like everything you go through and everything you do, you know, it's for a reason. Everything you go through is for you to grow through, you know. I mean, everything you do, it should make you better, not bitter, you know. And that's just how it should be. So, I mean, what makes a diamond is the cut, you know. It's not just the rock itself, you know. It makes it beautiful is like all the stuff that's been cut off. And every day, that's kind of what we do, you know. We wake up and we try to better ourselves in some way, and that's just another little refining of a diamond right there, you know. And I don't want to be that person that, you know. It's funny, I used to do this as a kid, and I heard David Goggins said he did it when he was running by a graveyard, and he was like, man, I wonder how many of these people didn't reach their full potential, like how many of them just lived, you know, like and never became what they could have become probably, and to think like, man, I could have been so much more. I could have done so much more in my life, you know. And I remember when I was a kid, like I said, in a little small town, we used to go to this graveyard. We went there a couple times, you know, with my brothers, just to look and see who we could find the oldest grave, like anything from like 18, like, man, look how this year's 1704. So, you know, we're like, man, this is an old grave, you know, it's just old rusted tombstone or whatever. We're like, man, I wonder how this dude lived. I wonder what happened to this guy. Like, you know, and honestly, it was just kind of like, when you think, he's like, he just probably lived his life as a farmer too, you know, you farmed and like, that was it. Like, and we have so much more available to us. Like, there's so many amazing things that we could do right now, you know? So like, why squander that? And I don't want to, you know, and like he said, I don't want to die with never meeting my true potential, never doing what I could do. And like, you know, I don't want to be that dude that uses my history and my prison sentence as an excuse to just work a 9 to 5 and die a lonely old man or anything. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could easily be like, yeah, my dad beat me, my mom would neglect me or whatever. You know, me and my mom have an amazing relationship now. You know, I haven't spoke with a lot of my family, you know, but I mean, I could use a lot of things as an excuse, and I could be like, oh man, I did all this time in prison and now I'm 40 years old and there's nothing I could. But like, nah, man, now, fuck that, fuck you. I'm running, I'm hiking, I'm waking up. I still wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, do what I got to do, you know, stretch. I mean, immediately when I get off work, I run straight to the iron office and I work out for at least an hour and a half, and I cater my workouts, and I immediately go to jiu-jitsu and I roll for like 3 hours. I probably get at least 14 to 15 hours a week. You know, I sign up for every competition I could do, and I do every single thing I can. You know, I drive wherever I can go to do anything for anybody. You know, I try to be that guy to where, like, even Sean, like, I mean, if you ever need anything, man, let me be that guy. You know, if even to the point to where, you know, I see people like, I mean, I may not have a lot of money, but I know it's cold outside. And if I see someone that needs a cup of coffee, like, I get that. I've been there. Like, I've lived in, you know, abandoned houses before, you know, I've done that. You know, I remember when I ran away from home and I was gone. I remember I lived in a friend's storm cellar. You know, I don't know if y'all know what that is, but in Texas, they got storm cellars for tornadoes. Mm-hmm. Some of the places in their backyard. And I'd go down there and I'd get like a dirty blanket. You know, I've been hungry. I've been also, I mean, you know, everything I do, I try to just, you know, make sure that it's for the best, you know, for everyone else around me. I want to be that person that, you know, the prophet, peace be upon him, said that a believer is like a hand with musk on it. You know, every time you shake someone's hand, you know, they walk away with a scent, with some of that smell on them, you know, and I want to be like that guy to where anytime, you know, my word means something, my work ethic means something. And just like, you know, I'm about progressiveness and growth and doing the most amazing things. And I want that, and that's all I want around me, man. You know, and if someone's going to be like a downer, like, oh man, this and that, I'm like, dude, there's no sense in that, man. Like, you ain't got, man, there's no point in having that in you, man. Get that out of you. Right. You know, and I don't even kick it around people like that. It's like, man, dude, it's not that serious. Like, this is the only life we have. Like, people say I was given a second chance. I was never given a second chance. I only got one life. There's no such thing as reincarnation, man. This is one chance you got. You either squander it or you don't, man. And I'm using it to stay healthy, stay fit, you know, and motivated, you know, and every day is an amazing day to grow, man, and to get better, man. I don't want to be that guy on his deathbed, like, with a ghost of people that I could have been. Like, oh man, you had dreams of doing jiu-jitsu and earning these gold medals and this, but you never did it. Oh man, you had dreams of being a firefighter, you know, and doing it, but you never did it, man. You had dreams of going over here and doing this, you know, endurance race or whatever, man, running these hikes, but you never did it, you know. Instead you did. Like, that's not me, man. That's not me at all. Like, man, and I encourage everybody to push your limits and do everything you can. Do what you can, man. And, you know, I mean, whether you call it embrace the suck, whatever it is, man, but discipline is the best part of every person's life, man. You have that, you'll get far, man. Motivation doesn't do it for you because you don't wake up in the morning motivated to get up. You know, I don't get motivated to go have some black belt sitting on my chest with my own gi wrapped around my neck. But, you know, I go get my issue, you know what I'm saying? Because, I mean, every day is a day to learn, and everything's a learning lesson, man. And it's the best learning lesson is so long as you're doing what you love, man. And life is the best thing worth loving, man. And yourself is the best thing worth working for.
Yeah. Well, thank you, man. Hey, Joshua, we definitely appreciate you being on here, sharing your story. And I know it's going to help a lot of people. So it's been another great episode. I'm Will.
And I'm Steven.
And this is the Post P Chronicles.
Hey. Hey, what up, say? Yeah.